thank you all for being here. You could have spent a Sunday morning elsewhere, right? Again, coming and listening to me talk about something that I'm really looking forward to, right? It's about purpose, passion, and positive psychology. Now, why did I want to talk about this, right? And this is something that is very close to my heart, right? And let me take you back around 29 years. Again, I may look 25, but I'm not, right? I'm around 50 years old, but remember the first time I graduated. I did my first degree from mechanical engineering. And of course, that time, what was next was something that was going on in my mind. But you know what my purpose was at that point in time? Try to make sure that I don't rely on my parents for money, right? And then what is my passion? Get a job, right? Of course, what happened, you go around looking for jobs, any kind of jobs, and of course, you're faced with rejection after rejection, right? Of course, I found a job, and I found a job in sales. And at that time, I go to my dad, and if I go around the room and look at all of you, I'm sure that if you go tell your parents that you get a job in sales, the first thing is, could you have done anything better, right? So I first found my job, and then, of course, I fell in love with sales. I fell in love with sales enough that I wanted to actually study more about it because I did not get enough of that at work or at the fact that in my university as well. So I started doing more in sales, and I found out that I really loved it, and my passion built up. My passion built up, and essentially what I said was, let me study more about this. Let me actually learn more about this particular topic. I did not know what I was getting myself into. I said, okay, great, let me go out there. And so what happened was I decided to go study more. I decided to go to the United States. And then I found out that the world of sales, even though critical for organizations, is not studied a lot. There's a lot of misconceptions about sales, and slowly but steadily started developing my purpose. Why not look at bringing sales into the domain, into universities? And so was born my purpose. So my passion now was meeting my purpose. And along the way, of course, not everything went to plan. And of course, I had to go, and I'm going to share with you the idea about why positive psychology is important. So what I'm going to be sharing with you in the next 12 to 13 minutes is a lot more about not just what I've experienced in my life, and that's going to be very vital to all of us, not just you, even for me. What is next? Right? What's going to come up next? I do not know, but the only thing is these three things are going to hold you in good stead. I get asked a lot of times, hey, how do you go about future-proofing yourself? Again, I do not have an answer. Only thing I know is you bring these three things, four things, positive psychology, and then at least you're well prepared to take on all the challenges that you're going to be coming up against. So, did you know, and I didn't know it till I started doing the calculations, that close to, if you work for around 45 plus years or 40 plus years, and I'm assuming you're going to be working 8 hours in a day in your work, it turns out that we'll be spending close to 90,000 hours. This is not to depress you, by the way. Huh? Just to let you know that a significant portion of what you're going to be doing, 90,000 hours is what you're going to be spending at work or doing something close to work. But what if those 90,000 hours, somehow we could bring it down to 45,000 hours? What if we can make sure that we can do all this and we can do much more meaningful things with the time that we can get from it as well? So we should be asking ourselves, 45,000 hours is still great, but we should be doing something with the time that we have. We should be making a mark on that, right? So of course, the question is, hey, okay, great, we want to make sense of what we're doing, but if you try and take a look at what's happening in the world around us, and I think we are looking at the concept of AI, right? Again, ChatGPT keeps coming up and saying, we are going to take your job away, dear Mr. Professor, right? So you have ChatGPT, you have global events happening, we have war. I think things are talking about crumbling down, the way we do things, everything is changing, right? One thing what we look at is what is next. Hey, I do not have an answer, but I know that every time I come to Mumbai, I know what is next. I want to go out there and get vada pav. Now, for those of you who are fans of misal pav, that's great as well, right? Vada pav is what speaks to me first, batata vada as well, right? So now the question is, if we have all of this, right? If you're taking a look at the fact that there's so many things happening, right? What are we going to try and do? And again, here I want to talk to you about one of my personal passions, which is everything that's got to do with Korean. Now, there's a reason behind it. The fact that I have two beautiful daughters who got me hooked on to K-pop. And from K-pop, I realized that if I'm going to be saving 45,000 hours, I may be looking at K-drama as well. So hence I thought, why not star in my own drama and take a look at, hey, how am I going to try to make sense of the time that I have? Right? What am I going to do moving on? And that is something that I hope that in the future I'll know, that I leave behind something that is very, very important, right? That I work a significant amount of time in my day. I'm in front of students, I'm in front of companies, I'm in front of colleagues. What does it mean? What do I leave behind? And that's my saga, right? Of course, why do we do this, right? A significant portion of our time is spent in front of young minds, right? You want to do this, you always don't do it for the money. People don't take up teaching just to make money. But at the end of the day, when you finish your classes, and if I go out there and in a class of 400 or 500, 25 people eventually come up to me and say, hey, I think I have a different perception about sales now. And I think that is fantastic. The rest of them, I hope I don't get an email like this. The fact is that I do everything with passion and I get an email that says that, hey, thank you for canceling class. I hope that what I leave behind, again, is the fact that some people find some kind of intrigue and passion for what they do, and not the fact that they're just happy to be home and not having a class, right? So that brings us to the idea of what keeps us passionate, right? Recently, I was watching something about a gentleman called Soham Parekh. Some of you might know, some of you might not know. Decides to take on 4 jobs. Now, I'm not here to talk about whether it's right or wrong, ethically correct or not, but imagine taking on 4 jobs, right? Hey, I find it very hard doing one job, right? 4 jobs, and the question is, we need to be motivated, we need to be passionate about doing this. Again, if you have second thoughts about it, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about the passion that he must have brought into it, maybe for himself, at least, but that's passion, right? But you compare that to what you see in Gallup, right? There's a lot of talk about people quiet quitting in their jobs, or the fact that people are not engaged in their jobs. And essentially, Gallup came and said 23% of the people in the workforce today are not engaged in the job. They don't have passion, they don't have a drive. Now, as a company, that's a lot of wasted time and effort. As an individual, we have one life to live. If you're not doing something with passion or purpose, why are you even there? You should be doing something more meaningful, right? Again, I'm not here to say what is meaningful or not. That's upon every individual, right? But the passion and purpose is something that you will have to focus on as well. Of course, in India, apparently the numbers are slightly better than 23%. It's 30%. It's still only 30% of the people are engaged. And let's hope that that 70% hopefully are not doing something else, or worse, do not burn out. That's again something which is also part of my research as well, right? So that's something that I wanted to share with you. And of course, which brings me to the first thing. Passion is great, but the next thing is there should be purpose, right? When we are looking at heat waves, actually I'm based in Paris, the city of Paris, and before I just came, there was a heat wave. And I was actually going into work mostly because we had air conditioning at work, right? Hopefully the purpose is not about trivial things like these. It's more about something that drives you. It's about something that is meaningful. That you might not have to, again, change the world. But if you do something that is purposeful to you and the people that matter to you the most, that's what it is. And at the end, I'll show you what my purpose is. One part of it is myself. Right? At the end of the day, that we always say is if you're not happy yourself, you cannot make other people happy. Right? Ayn Rand, the famous philosopher, right, who's written books like Atlas Shrugged, she says, selfishness is a virtue. Right? At the end of the day, think about yourself first. There's nothing wrong in that. Think about purpose for yourself. Make something meaningful. And then we can start talking about the others and making the world a better place, or ask for world peace. Right? So, that brings me to purpose is great, right? You need to have purpose, but of course you also need to have the energy to go along with it. You also need to have passion. And by the way, this is the evolution of my passion. You can easily say, apart from sales, food is a big passion of mine, right? To the point where there used to be a time I could literally, physically look at the whole space here. That would be me. Of course, life catches up, right? But you'll see that passion is not something that is always constant. Passion develops, right? My passion developed the more I learned about food. It starts down where? I'm a boy from Chennai. Boy, okay. Again, I'm from Chennai, right? It started from there. You know, we've had something called skuri paniyaram. As I say, it's actually small bowls of heaven, right? It started from there, but as I started going to different places and I realized what keeps people passion, purpose is food. And you get to know a lot about other people with the kind of food that they eat. Along the way, if you happen to like food, you see that it's evolved eventually towards japchae, bulgogi, things like that that are Korean. But what I'm trying to say here is not about the food or about my journey, is the fact that your passion evolves. My passion began with saying that, hey, first thing I want to do is find a job that I like. Then it got into, hey, it has to be about sales. Now I'm looking at newer things in life. Of course, there's one part of passion, which is what do I leave behind to my children? The two people that I can maybe have a bigger influence than on anybody else, right? And again, that's something your passion evolves. And the key aspect here is this, right? Passion with a sense of purpose is essentially what we call harmonious passion. That is, how can I drive myself towards a purpose, right? And that is going to help you a lot. And of course, most of you know we tend to binge watch, but trying to say, at the end of the day, you don't want to burn out. You want to make sure that when I have a kind of a harmonious passion where I say, hey, this is what I want to do, and I hold myself, I self-regulate, and that's going to be very, very critical for some of the younger ones, is at the end of the day, we're doing all this. Make sure that you always know what is your vision, what is it that we're doing. Also understand that you're not going to be working in vacuum. We are working with other people with us. Take them along with you on the journey, right? And if you take them along with you on the journey, that comes from a very harmonious passion where you can look at your vision, take a look at what you value, what you want to stand for, and that is a lot more important. Because if you do not have that idea, you just have a sense of purpose with no passion, you will tend to burn out. You will actually make sure obsessive passion. I'm guilty of this. When the actual TV show on Netflix came out, which was actually Kingdom, I ended up binge watching it at the expense of what is going to happen the next day. Sometimes we also need to make sure that we have passion, but we also need to have that purpose as well, right? And essentially, I do all this, and I cannot tell you the first time I moved to Europe way back in 2003, and I said I want to teach sales in a European business school, and the first thing they said was, we don't need sales. The job of sales is just to go get orders and come back. Every time I would push towards sales in the curriculum, I would get kicked back. And again, the key here is having a positive attitude. And that's going to happen for every one of us. You want to push your agenda across? There's always going to be somebody who says, we have better things to do, right? And I cannot stress enough that if you always need to be positive in your attitude, there will be difficult times. But the key is have hope, right? And this is not me saying it, this is all researched. All the concepts that I'm talking about here have been researched, right? And the key thing is hope is extremely important. You need to have a positive attitude and outlook. Nothing's always going to go your way. Make sure you do that, right? Then, of course, there's self-efficacy, the belief that you can do this, right? And that comes, the more passionate you are, the more you believe in yourself, and that's a feeling that you can actually do things. Resilience, people talk about grit, right? Those are two things that you have to understand, that you're going to be knocked down, you need to pick yourself up, right? You need to do this, and having passion and purpose is going to help you there as well. And I'll tell you, my passion evolves. What drives my passion is to make sure that while I'm doing all this, I'm working towards keeping two individuals extremely happy and in my life. Those are my two daughters. Of course, there's also a Mrs. who keeps me grounded, by the way, essentially in terms of that. But again, I do not want to go saying that when I'm out there trying to educate people about sales, trying to do all this, probably going around different parts of the world. Now I need to make sure that I don't come back to a home where they've gone on to do their things. Understand that everything that we do, there is somebody out there that you're doing this for, right? And for me, it's my girls. I do not want to come back to this, right? And I want to leave you with this. Why am I doing this? My purpose, I said, started from trying to get a job, trying to the point where I'm putting sales out there in the university curriculum. Why am I doing this? At the end of the day, is to go and spend time with those three individuals, right? And those three individuals make me who I am today, right? And I hope that all of you find your sense of passion, your purpose, and always keep a positive attitude, because that is what is going to help you moving forward, especially in a very, very volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous world, the VUCA world. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to that speakers as well.